Hope everybody's okay today. And yes, today's session is going to be related to TAMs, segments, and geographies. So it's different aspects of market sizing. Total addressable market will be one of the key things that we'll be talking about to begin with. Then we'll talk about the different segments in the market and how to segment a market, particularly how to size the different parts of a market, and then geographical segmentation as well. So it's building on a presentation that I did a couple of weeks ago, which was a sort of introduction to market sizing and forecasting. Soumya, are you ready to pick up?
Yes, Oliver. Should we wait for a few more people to join in? For like a
Uh,
couple of minutes, or should we get started?
I don't mind. Yeah, let's perhaps give it a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
Um,
so
yeah, so just while we're waiting, we're from the business research company. It's a market intelligence company that offers market sizing, competitor intelligence, all kinds of sort of does what it says on the tin, business research. We have a wide range of reports. And then we do a lot of consulting projects or customized research projects looking into different markets and their size and potential. And yes, this is a presentation that talks about some of the things that we do as a business on a regular basis in order to understand and assess different markets. Yeah, I think we can probably get started whenever you're ready, Soumya.
all right, let's get started. So, hello everyone, and a very warm welcome from us. And thank you so much for joining us on today's session for one of the most critical topics for your business growth, which is understanding your market potential. And I'm Soumya, and I'm so excited to be here with Oliver Guirdham, our CEO of the business research company. And so today we will be diving into total addressable market, or as the jargon goes, TAM, right? And how strategically can you utilize the information by understanding what is TAM? How do you utilize the information for bringing it ahead to SAM and SOM? And why do you need to segment your market to target your geographies, particularly without wasting resources or optimally utilizing your resources? So, by the end of the session, our aim is to equip you with skills and tools that you need to properly understand, to size your market, help you understand how and why to segment your market, and effectively choose the best geography for your expansion. And let's get started. So, next slide, please. Let's kick off things with understanding what is TAM. TAM is total addressable market. Like the definition goes, it's total revenue opportunity available for your product or service in a specific market. It covers the 100% revenue opportunity for you in a condition where there is no competition. So it's a market without any competition, so it's not fragmented or clustered. It is a total market for you. Why is TAM important? It is important because for just your product or service, it helps your business understand the maximum potential, not the optimized potential, which we want to target, but the maximum potential that you can target or that you can capture within a market, right? Then, one of the most important pieces of information, why does it matter? Before we understand what is it, we should understand why does TAM matter. It is very essential for you to understand your total addressable market, for you to be able to determine the scope of your business or the investment decisions that you're making in a long and a short term strategy. So imagine you are a electric car brand and your TAM would be the entire globe, right? But realistically, you wouldn't be able to sell to every person in the world who drives a car, right? But that's a big picture. Not everyone will be buying from you, but that's where you have to come and realize that, okay, I need to segment my market and I need to look at the geographies where I can strategically penetrate better. So to understand TAM, your first step is to scale your knowledge to understand the total size of the market and then break it down further. And that's where TAM, SAM, and SOM comes into the picture. So the breakdown of TAM, which is the total revenue, which is the top of the pyramid, goes to the second level, which is SAM. The abbreviation stands for serviceable available market, which is the middle of the pyramid. So to understand SAM better, I would say this is the portion of TAM that a company can realistically target on a geography or within an industry or from the specific product or service that you're selling or that you want to penetrate within the market, right? So it is a portion which you can cover again, given that there is no competition. Then coming to the next step, it is SOM, which is serviceable obtainable market, which is the bottom of the pyramid. So it is the realistic portion, the most realistic portion of SAM you can actually capture within your market, considering the competition, the pricing strategies, the resources, and the optimization that you are to implement. And also, very important, your go to market strategy, where we come into the picture and we help you understand how to enter the market, when to enter the market, what can you do to best maintain your strategies in the market and get a competitive edge, or scale your capacity and have the best brand positioning. So, for
Can I
example,
add something
yeah,
in there, Soumya?
yes, of course.
Yeah, so just I mean, when you think about the difference between TAM and SAM, it's like the serviceable addressable market is the bit that you can, as it says, realistically target. So let's say you're a car company, and you are you've got the production and capability to sell in Europe, but not yet in South America. There's no point in continuously comparing yourself to the total addressable market, the total global addressable market, because you'll just be beating yourself up saying, okay, why have we only got like 5%? But some of it you can't reach at the moment, right? So it's a way of the SAM and the SOM are ways of turning the total addressable market into something that's a realistic target for your business, and that, as it says, the SOM is the one that you're probably going to be looking at most frequently. I don't know, if you're a search engine, there's not a lot of point in you saying that our target market is 100% of search, which would be the TAM, because realistically Google has got a massive hold on the market. But maybe you think that in a certain niches and with certain strategies you can get to 10%. So then you would look at that, and how to get there through your go-to-market strategy. So the SOM is probably, they're all steps that you have to take, but the SOM is probably the one that you're going to focus on most day to day in terms of your targeting. Sorry, Soumya.
All right, that was a very useful example, Oliver. I have a different example on my own, which goes around by our favorite Netflix. So, if we are to consider the TAM for Netflix or say any other OTT platform, I would say it is the entire global streaming population, right? But if I am to look at the SAM for Netflix, it would be only the geographies where Netflix is able to penetrate because of the regulations or the operations or any other reason, the pricing strategy or other factors that one might consider. But when it comes to SOM of Netflix, then the market share that Netflix has actually covered with respect to its competitors, such as Disney Plus, HBO, or Amazon Prime, that would be its most realistic market sizing information that you can get. So that's the SOM. So moving ahead, now we will talk about the three ways in which you can calculate TAM. So the first one goes by one of the most common methods, that is The top-down approach. The top-down approach utilizes the ready reports. Those are the global market reports where we come into the picture again and help you out by understanding how can you enter the market or how can you take over your competition. The next is the bottom-up approach where you understand, you go the other way around and utilize the information available that is from your competition or the already existing uh, companies within the market and analyze that information. Then the last one, I would say, is the most realistic one and the most useful one, which is the value theory approach, where you try and understand the pain points of the customers and then you try to multiply that with the amount of money they would be willing to pay with respect to you resolving their problem. So we'll dig deeper into all of these steps one by one. Next slide, please. Starting with the top-down approach. So it is one of the most common approaches, and it is also the most susceptible to error. Why? Because it requires you matching your needs with the demand or the supply in the market. So in order for you to understand that, okay, do I have the correct information? You need to find a good research partner. A good research partner will cover every single thing that you're looking for and would help you tailor the needs for your products or services. And that's where, the business research company has done a really good job in segmenting over 15,000 markets, over 60 geographies, and we cover more than 27 industries. And we are very good in tailoring content and customizing the research for you. But over that, we are also an expert in selling syndicated market research reports. So when you have a market research report, what would you look into? You would look into the total size of the industry. How is the industry segmented? So within that segmentation, what are the geographies where the market is growing? What is the fastest growing geography? What is the slowest geography where you might want to penetrate, but at a slower pace? But what is the easiest geography for you to enter, or what would be the pricing, what are the regulations that different governments are implementing globally, or what is the competitive landscape? And best of all, that we like to pride ourselves for is the trends, strategies, and opportunities within the market, where we're able to tell you that yes, these are the opportunities, this is how much the opportunity coming into the market is worth, and once you are willing to invest, this is how much you would be gaining from it. Then
Can
looking
I
at,
just add
yes.
something there, Soumya? Yeah, I mean, I think there's some restrictions on this way of looking at TAM, and this is probably not the way that we normally look at it. We would regard this as basically the current market size, the market sizing. And yeah, it's a bit restricted because you're assuming that that you're not looking really beyond what the market has achieved at the moment. You're not looking at what what is the potential of the market? Who are the people who could buy it but don't buy it at the moment, right? So this way of looking at it is the more restrictive way of looking at it. And we would normally, but we produce a huge amount of data on this because it's very important numbers, but we regard this as kind of market size. And then when we talk about TAM, we tend to focus on what is the potential of the market, if what could the market achieve if it gets penetration from all the potential interested people, etc. The stuff that you'll be talking about now, Soumya.
All right. Adding to that, there's one example that we can cover to understand the top-down approach easier, which is the fitness industry example. This is one of my favorite examples because it's very easy for us to understand post-COVID. Why? Because see, the global fitness industry is worth somewhere around more than $100 billion. But if you're just selling home gym equipment, then this is not your target market. You have to further segment it down and then look at the geographies where you might be able to sell, and then look at the market sizing information that's available for you. And that's where you need to find a provider for market research that gels well with your requirement. So if a company is selling you global fitness market report, that's not what you want to look for. You want to look for gym equipment market report. So that's for the top down approach. Moving to the bottom up approach. This is an approach where one utilizes actual sales data and then scales it up with respect to the average revenue one is expecting per customer. This is one of the most common methods which is used in the market. It is simply multiplying the number of potential customers in your market with their willingness to pay. So suppose you're running a SaaS company or like a CRM software that costs around $500 per year, and you're expecting 10 million potential buyers within that year. So in your segment, if you're to make that sale, then your TAM would be around 10 million into $500. That is $5 billion. So this method is favored a lot by investors because it is based on real numbers, and you can also analyze and forecast the numbers more realistically towards like the nearest, actualization. Oliver, is there anything you would like to add to it, or perhaps an example?
Yeah, I mean this tends to give you a bigger number. It's something that also you can do some work on yourself, right? You can feed in numbers that you I'll talk a little bit more about the methodology for doing this. But yeah, the advantage of this definition, and this would be the definition that we would normally use, is it's not talking about what has been achieved right now, but what is the potential, what is the addressable market, the total potential size of the market. Who could you go after, right? So we're saying there are 10 million people who could pay. And this product or service is normally priced around $500, so potentially it's worth $5 billion. Normally, that number will be bigger than the actual size of the market at that particular point, because very few markets have reached absolute saturation. You might find with something like utilities or electricity that this view of TAM would give a pretty similar figure to the actual market, because it's pretty much saturated and everybody's, or in Western, in much of the world, people have got the electricity that they need. But if it's in most services, and certainly new services, new opportunity markets, this view of TAM will be much higher than the actual market size at the time, because there is not everybody who could buy it, who has a potential need for it, has bought it.
All right, Oliver, thank you for that. So now moving on to the last approach on how can we calculate TAM. This is one of my favorite approaches. Why? Because it estimates TAM on the customer willingness to pay, but that willingness is highly dependent upon the level of the pain that you're resolving.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very disruptive. It is new. Here, if it can help you enter as a new entrant in the market, or when you're introducing a new product or a service within the market. And this approach is about estimating how much you are helping your customer and how easy you're making that person's life. So also, so first, let's look into the example. Suppose you are providing an AI-powered diagnostic tool or a solution to an hospital that saves around, $50,000 per year by utilizing the AI solution, and then you say that there are around 50,000 hospitals that could benefit from it. So 50,000 times 50,000 would be like 2.5 billion, and that's how much your market might be worth. But this is one of the hardest methods, or like this method is somewhat perfect, what I have heard and learned and read, but it is innovative and it helps you understand the industry much better. But you need to utilize customized research for your information over here. You cannot get standardized information. You need to talk to the people in the market or the related industries, the supplier side, the provider side, all the other steps or divisions within the supply chain or the operations chain. And then you need to understand what is the data that's existing in the market. You need to talk to people who are operating within different industries that are related to the market, and then understand how can you enter the market better, and what can you do to best resolve the problem that is existing in the market. And that's why you need to utilize bespoke solutions, and that's where we come into the picture. The business research company, we provide excellent custom research solutions, from helping you enter the market, to improvising on your product, to helping you understand your finances, or getting you a supplier, or helping you understand your distribution, or even helping you make your complete go-to strategy, which we are doing right now. So that's one of my favorite methods, like I said. So moving on to the next slide. So here I would like to conclude my part by saying that understanding TAM is like peeling an onion. All the people who could benefit from a product or service is other outer part of the onion. So you see how onions are made of layers, and the harder it is, sorry, the deeper you dig, more the nearer you are to the core, and the core is the product or the service that you're providing as your solution. The outer layer would be all of the people who can benefit from the product or the service, not your product or the service. And then the second layer, or the nearer layers, would be people who are currently in need of the service. And then as you move ahead, you'll meet people who can afford or pay for your product or your service. And then you will actually meet your target buyers persona. That would be people who use the product or a service, and that would be the segment you would want to target. And hence that's the reason why it's very important for you to understand TAM, to make the right decision and understand the true potential of your market. That's it from my end. Over to you, Oliver.
Thank you, Soumya. Yes, so there are different ways of looking at this onion. So I think you could even have the Sam and the Som and the Sam are potentially within that last circle. So you're going kind of through circles, um, uh, further and further to target the number that you're really looking at. But it's useful to have this concept. So yes, that there might be a huge potential global market for your product, right? So if you took the broadest view of it is like everybody who could potentially benefit from it, right? But then some of the that is the genuine potential market for your product or service, but it may not be easy to address. Then you've got the people who, like a lot of those people might not even be aware that they need the product or service, or they might be aware that yeah. So exactly they may be aware that it's there, but they don't want it, right? If you're selling services for giving up smoking, your total addressable market is all the people who smoke, but some of them don't want to give up, right? So there are steps to be taken to get those people into your addressable market. You've got to persuade them that they want to give up smoking. The next circle, they want your product or service, or they have an interest in it, um, but they may not be looking at your product or service, right? So say you're selling a hypnosis thing for giving up smoking, right? They may be trying to give up smoking using chewing gum, but potentially they are within your market for the hypnosis service. So they want something, but they don't necessarily want what you've got. And you would then need to move them towards you to if you to really make that market addressable, you'd have to get them to um, be aware of and want your service. And then, of course, some of those people, even the people who know about your service and that's what they want, and they have the need, some of them can't afford it, right? So those people would drop out at that stage. And you could argue about which way round these circles go. Maybe the affordability circle should come first because in some ways it's pretty fundamental because it's not likely to change quickly. But eventually you get down to the people who currently use the product or service. They can afford it, they know about it, they want it, they use it, and that's your current market size. But it's not the full addressable market in the way that I would use it, which is the whole, which is bringing in people with a potential need, even if they don't necessarily currently know that they have that need. Next slide, please. So here are some ways of calculating TAM. I think one thing that I would say at this point is that, with these different methodologies and discussions around TAM, all of them have their validity. The key thing is to be really clear about how you're defining TAM. Are you defining it as the outermost circle or the middle circle or somewhere in between, and just being really clear about that. Um, just working a couple of examples. So, calculating TAM for a consumer market, um, literally just starting with the population. So, but this might not be the total population for many markets. So let's say, I don't know, it's the market for alcohol or something, then you would exclude children. If it's the market for I don't know, marathon running, you might exclude children or the very old, maybe not. But yes, it's the relevant population. And then it's the percentage adoption that you're targeting or that you think is possible. So as I said, yeah, this might not be the current percentage of people who are using a product or service, but the ones for whom it's relevant. So yeah, going back to the previous example, people with a who have particular needs, they would fall within this, but they may not be current users. Then it's you simply calculate the average revenue per user, per customer, and multiply the two together. Now that average revenue per customer number could be, you could just leave it simply at the current number. How do you find that out? Well, you might do it through consumer surveys. You look at pricing information. You look at what products and services are sold at, and then perhaps mix that with customer based information about the product or service. One of the key things to think about here is not just the price, but the frequency of use, because there's no you should not be thinking about the revenues in terms of the price of, let's say, a cup of coffee. You're thinking about the price of a cup of coffee times the average number of times people buy a coffee in Starbucks or whatever, if you're looking at an annual figure. And then you times the two together to give you the total um, uh, um, uh, the TAM. One of the classic markets that this approach is commonly used for is the healthcare market. Um, and it's particularly relevant for that. So if we move on to the next slide.
This is
Big,
জিনিসটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট। আচ্ছা, আমরা যেখানে এসে
hello.
এটা করছি।
Thanks. So in healthcare, it's particularly important or particularly useful because you do have hard numbers for things like prevalence and incidence. So you often have a clear idea of how many people have a disease, but you can't simply take the prevalence and times it by the number of the prevalence and times it by the cost of treatment. Again, there's factors like how many. So just because someone has a disease doesn't mean it's under treatment. Many diseases like high blood pressure or types of infertility, or very many, a large proportion of the people who have the problem may not be aware of it, or they may be aware of it and not bothering to treat it, or they may be aware of it and not able to afford to treat it. So there's a difference between the prevalence and the treated and the population under treatment. So yeah, then then there's the number of people who are addressing it, but then they might be addressing it through different methods again. So there might be different approaches to dealing with a disease. It might be there might be vaccines, there might be biologics, there might be normal pharmaceuticals, there might be over-the-counter options and prescribed options, etc. So in terms of the addressable market, you boil it down, you then have that reduction down to the people who are addressing it in your, through the mechanism that you're suggesting. And then you get the adoption rate, and that then times the cost of treatment. That would be then give you the TAM. But you may well look at the what you regard as the addressable market and say, okay, a lot of these people may not be aware of this at the moment, but they're still within our addressable market, because if we can make them aware of it, then we can get them, then we can broaden our addressable market. Or they may not be using our solution at the moment, they're using a substitute solution, but if we can get those people to address the problem through their through our solution, then they come within our addressable market. Does anyone, I think we're almost done with TAM now. Anyone, so I'll just quickly run through that. I think we've kind of been through the valuing bit, so I think that's fine. And then forecasting forward, you need to project forward the base factors that are driving your forecast, like population growth, demographic changes, etc. But you also need to forecast forward the pricing or cost of the service or product or service, so that the total addressable market will be growing as time passes. Does anyone have any questions on that at the moment?
अरे वो स्टार्ट हो गया ना मीटिंग।
Sorry, I didn't really understand that.
I don't think that was a question, Oliver. I don't think we have any active questions right now.
Okay. Good. Next slide, please. So going on to segmentation. So this is another critical aspect. It's about dividing markets into smaller, more manageable segments, based on demographics, behavior, geography, etc. So segmentation is a massive thing in market research, and it's critical because it allows you to really focus in on the target market for your product or service, really, and address. It allows you to, rather than seeing this huge, but open expanse of people who might buy your product or service, it allows you to really focus in on a niche, who might be the most suitable for you or the most attractive part of the market. So it allows for more targeted marketing efforts, enables better resource allocation, and facilitates clear messaging and value propositions tailored to specific groups. Next slide. So the benefits of market segmentation helps you, as I said, improve your customer targeting, identify opportunities within your market. So rather than just seeing your market as a big blank space, it allows you to focus in on the key opportunities for you, the ones that you're best suited to. Allows you to, so that will drive sales. It will help you develop your product, thinking about your customers in a much more concrete terms, and develop your product for them. That in turn will give you a competitive advantage and allow you to be more efficient, particularly say in your sales efforts, because instead of going out with just a blanket offering and trying to reach everybody, narrowing in on a very specific group of people that you're trying to reach. So the classic ways that we segment the market are by age, by income, by gender, by region, um, by psychographic factors like lifestyle or values, or could be political orientation. Within demographic, of course, income is a huge factor that you're often looking at. You're often trying to focus in on a particular income group, and then even behavioral factors, purchasing behavior, interactions. Where do they hang out? Where do they get their information? Are they social media users, etc. So there's a huge amount of time and effort in the market research industry goes into breaking out these kind of segments and finding out more about them, because that's the key to tailoring your product and services and your marketing messages to those audiences. Next slide. We focus more on so we do a lot of B2B research. So we do that kind of research, and we can help you with that. But we also we particularly focus on business to business research, and here we're looking more at segmenting the market by the particular type of product or service. So any market can be further broken down into more specialized subunits. So if you have the automotive market, then you could break it down in lots of different ways. So that this is the key thing to understand. There's not just one way of segmenting it, but there are many ways of segmenting it. So you could segment it by technology, by whether it's a manual or automatic, whether it's electric or petrol or diesel or hydrogen potentially. You could do it by size, SUV, small vehicle, limousine, I don't know, many. So there are many ways of breaking down the market. So form, size, material, size again, sorry about that, and model. Then there's the technology used, whether it's a manual, automated, smart technology, channel that it reaches you by, online, retail, different alternatives, price, premium, standard, discounted. So there are many ways of breaking down the overall market size to make it more targeted and specific. And this will help you to focus in on exactly which segment you want to be focused on, which is the key one, which is growing fastest, which is largest, which has the most potential, and then in combination with the geographic information, which one has the most potential in a specific geography. How do you go about estimating market segments? So you're taking your overall market size. We talked in the last session about how to develop that figure, but you can also get it from buying research reports or from access to an information database. Then further segmenting that, you can use things like, obviously, if there's hard market data available, then that's ideal. You can look at company reporting, companies that are operating in that segment, and how much they're what proportion in that market, and what proportion comes from each segment. Obviously, you have to be careful with that. Triangulate it with related markets. So looking at the overall market size, looking at once you've got information about one segment, you can start comparing with that to develop other segment numbers. You can just look at sort of general impact. So let's say you were looking at and presence as a guide. Obviously, none of these things in themselves on their own are sufficient. But let's say you were looking at, I don't know, different types of lamps, and you wanted to break them down by design types. You could look at web stores and do a survey of how many fit into different design types. Now, the numbers that are on websites does not necessarily reflect the volume that are sold, but it gives you some indication that you can start working on an estimate from. Expert interviews with people who are in the market are an excellent way of doing this, because they will tend to have good visibility. Media monitoring is sort of going beyond the web research that I was talking about before in terms of just presence and information. Consumer surveys is a very good way of doing it, going out and asking the customers which segments within this market do you buy most of, but expensive and difficult to do. So there's a whole range of ways of doing this process. But also, many market research firms will have done much of it for you, and then you're starting from a stronger base, and you can go and check on the work that they've done, look at their sourcing, etc. Next slide. Geographic segmentation, again, it's similar, very important, because there's no point in deciding the market you're in and then just going, okay, well, we've got the whole world to address. Where do we start, right? For many businesses and services, you have to be focused on specific geographies. Of course, you may have limitations. It may not. You can't always just choose what is the biggest and fastest growing market and go there. But at points of expansion, or when you do have that capability, you want to be doing careful geographic segmentation to decide where you're focusing, which countries, regions you'd be focusing your time and effort on. And of course, if you're, let's say if you are restricted to a certain market in terms of the logistics, so you're a car rental firm, or and you're currently based in one country, and you don't yet have budget to expand more widely, you still want to be doing this kind of analysis at a more local level, so breaking your country down into regions, counties, etc. Again, similar types of information to break things down at a geographic level. The additional help that you get with this that you don't get with sub-segmenting an industry or a market is that there's a lot of macro data that you can use for modeling. So if you have hard figures for say one country for a market, but you don't have hard figures for others, or maybe you have a handful of countries you have hard figures, you can make some reasonable estimates based on macroeconomic data, and this macroeconomic data is obviously widely available. So things like economic development, income levels, of course, population, GDP, etc. And you can make some assumptions about that will allow you to estimate the market size in other countries that you can then cross-reference with further research. So when it comes to choosing the right geographies to target for your business, analyzing the current market value, the total addressable market. So those two things are two things that you really want to be thinking about all the time. What is the current value of my market, and how do I target taking a bigger share of that, and what could my market expand to? Who are the customer groups that are potentially within my market that and that are not currently being addressed, but could be addressed, that could have a potential need for my service. And then also the forecast market size. How much is this market expected to grow? So those are key factors for deciding which markets to be targeting. And then, of course, you want to be thinking about all sorts of other factors: regulatory, cultural, the level and difficulty of the competition, the amount of investment required to enter a market. There are many other factors that need to be considered in terms of deciding before you begin you make a yes/no decision on going into a market. Yeah. So summing up, market research firms can help in every stage of this. They can do a detailed market assessment. So we would obviously advocate the business research company. To drive your global presence. Sorry, you got a bit. Yeah, you can. Yeah, to do an assessment, break it down into geographies, and then look at all the other factors like political risk, economic risk, regulatory issues, etc. Next slide.
Oliver, we do have a question,
Right.
it's from Yasmin, which says, how do you assess the value of the markets? I would like to highlight that we did cover that in detail in one of our past webinars, and we are very much happy to send you the link to it. But Oliver.
Yes, let me just come to that. Let me just finish off this last bit because I think we're on the last couple of slides now, and then I'll come to that question. So there are a number of market intelligence databases that you can buy. We would highlight the global market model, but there are others in the market. They're really helpful beyond just buying an individual market report because they allow you to compare different geographies, compare related markets, break markets down. We give you a long period of historic data, and we also give you competitor information, market share information. So these databases can be really useful for anyone working on this kind of analysis. So putting it all together, the TAM helps you to understand the potential market. The segmentation allows you to narrow in on what you should really be focusing on and the areas of highest growth. And then the geographical segmentation takes that and focuses it in particular geographies and regions or parts of a country, so that you're really targeting in on it in a very defined way. Question about how do you value a market? That I think we did cover this last time, but at the high level, it's it's not an exact science, but you're pulling together all available data. You're triangulating it with information for other markets that are related. So if you're looking at the size of the electric car market, you're not only pulling together data related to the value of that market, but you'll be looking at the valuations of the overall car market, making sure they make sense with each other. You can compare different geographies. So if you're looking for the value for the US market, but you've got the value for the European market, that may give some guide. It may not. It's not an exact guide, but if your number is coming out 10 times higher, then you might want to question that. You can do checks with estimates to check that it's realistic, thinking about the population and how much the spend is per person on the number that you've got. So there are many parts of it, and then there are in the previous lecture I also talked about the different sources that you can use. So I think Soumya will send you that previous presentation and that should be helpful. And if there's anything you want to ask us directly, then please do. Thanks, Yasmin.
Is it
All
possible
right.
to ask a question directly, or I should write it?
No. Yes, of course. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Oliver, for the great presentation.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I missed the previous webinar. I hope I get it. But I want to ask you, for example, you gave the example of electric car. If you want to assess the value of the market, would you go directly for data related only to electric car or e-mobility, or the whole market of car in general, even and you take in consideration also the conventional, considering that you're electric car manufacturer? Do you take everything in consideration or only the electric sector?
I think you look at everything. I mean, I think when you're trying to get a strong valuation of a market, the start of the process should be as open as possible, where you are looking at every possible data source, right? And finding out all related data. So yeah, I mean, at the most basic level, as I was saying, if you start and you'll see many numbers out there when you look at something like electric cars, and if you start seeing numbers where the number for electric cars is higher than the overall automotive market, or less than 1% of the overall automotive market, it gives you some guidance that that number is unreliable, right? So I would always look at it's all about the triangulation of different data points, and looking at all possible sources, and then it's a matter of thinking about it, right? It is not a process that you can do just, okay, I've read something in a newspaper that says this market is valued at this. Fine, I put that in my report or my presentation. You have to be gathering different data sources, assessing the quality of those data sources, and interrelating them to each other. And that is how you get the best estimates for market sizing. Now, something like electric cars, there's probably pretty good data out there. But as you get into the niches of niches, and you get into very fast-growing new markets, there isn't very good data available, and it's all about piecing together the available evidence. And then wherever possible, you'll go out and speak to people in that market and get more information that way.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question, Yasmin. I hope that makes sense to you. I'll make sure that you get all of the previous recordings, and we will keep in touch with you for our next sessions. So anybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them right now.
What's the subject of our next session, Soumya?
How do we frame our go-to-market strategy?
Okay, all right.
And concluding everything. And we do have a very good topic coming up next, and we will send out emails and invites for our next session, and the details will be there within the email.
Yeah, and there'll be other sessions coming up on things like competitive intelligence, I think regulatory intelligence, supply intelligence. So there's lots of different aspects of it, and the idea is for it to be quite practical, based on our experience of doing many of these projects.
Yes, it would involve a lot of our working experience with over 12 years of experience working as a market intelligence firm globally. And there will also be a surprise discount coupon just in case you're interested in working with us. So if there are no questions, I would like to conclude our meeting. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. We really appreciate you joining us today and understanding TAM. Just in case you have any questions, you can find Oliver at Oliver Guirdham on LinkedIn, or email us at info.
Sorry, Soumya.
Yes, info@tbrc.info. I've put the email ID in our chat, and thank you so much again. Good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.